DeJardin is our first speaker, our first veteran.
Fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests. Believe it or not, this is the first time I have ever been asked to say anything about my military career, and I consider it a great privilege to do so on this occasion. But I will try to keep what I'm going to say to 4 to 6 minutes. I want to tell you why I joined the military, what the military offered me as an opportunity to grow as a person, as a professional in the service, and why I would always and forever recommend military service to any young person considering a career for themselves. Now, in explaining why I decided to join the military, I have to own up to a confession. I never planned to join the military. It was the furthest thing from my mind when I was growing up. I just escaped the draft in '74, graduating from high school, and the draft ended in '76. My 2 brothers were caught up in it, but not I, and I had no plans, as I say. So what was it that persuaded me? Well, in 1982, when I finally made the plunge, or just before I did, there were hard times in America. There was a little bit of economic hardship. And I found myself, well, I'll admit, I quit my job as a chemist, a pesticide residue analyst down in Fort Lauderdale with the Florida Department of Agriculture. And I came up here to find work. And all I could find was cutting grass and trimming hedges and painting fences and maybe a little bit of bridge inspection. But it wasn't to my satisfaction. Well, I had some ambition as a young man to do something more. But still, I wasn't thoroughly convinced the military path was the path for me. I made a few inroads, I made a few inquiries, but it wasn't until I was working for Benfield Industries, and there was a fateful date in 1982 when the Benfield plant in Waynesville burnt down. That was quite an event, and it made headlines in the local paper. Some of you may recall that event, but that persuaded me. There was a sequence of events I'll avoid talking about, but what turned the corner was an interview I had down in Charlotte with the Army recruiting office, because it was the Army I was approaching first to see about a career. And the idea was maybe to become a medic, something I thought had prospects for once I left the military, because if I got in, I wasn't planning to stay in. I went down to interview and I found out, lo and behold, there was no guarantee about medical training. I'd first have to go through boot camp and then apply afterwards. The alarm went up. I said, I don't think this is a sure bet. I think I maybe will defer going into the military for a while, but then fate took a hand, because as I was walking down the hall in that building, leaving the building to come back to Waynesville, I passed an open door leading into the Air Force recruiting office. And I said, well, why not? I'm here anyway, so go on in and find out what they have to offer. And I went in, and of course they found out I had an existing chemistry degree, and they said, oh, well, guess what, Mr. DeJardin? Just so happens the Air Force Institute of Technology Civilian Institutions Degree Conversion Program might be right for you. What it means is this: because of your existing science degree, we have a program where we will send you off to Medina Annex, Lackland Air Force Base, to get a commission as a second lieutenant. Then once you get that and are paid as a second lieutenant, you'll go through 2 years of schooling as an electrical engineer. Not with us, but through a civilian institution we sponsor. I will tell you right now, and without hesitation, it was the best offer that ever came my way in my life. I did not hesitate, especially since the agreement would be in writing a priori, to sign on the dotted line and agree to that program. And that's what got me in. And I can say, and I'm jumping the gun here to say it, but every time I think about this, I think it was a golden opportunity. And it turned out to have great ramifications in my life, because indeed I went to officer training school at Medina Annex for 3 months, got my commission, and then went off to school for 2 years, got my diploma in electrical engineering, and then there were all sorts of opportunities that awaited me on a career path through the military. I still wasn't planning to stay in full term, but just to give you an idea of what can happen, because nobody can anticipate this. I was an electrical engineer now. I wasn't a combat person. Electrical engineer, and I was assigned to some preliminary programs at Wright-Patterson in the displays branch. Yes, I know. I was worried about this. So, but I have to tell you this humorously. One of the first conversations I had with the commanding colonel for our Aeronautical Systems Center was, Lieutenant DeJardin, let me reassure you that I'll never give you an assignment that if you mess up, will have severe consequences. And that reassured me getting my first start. I was farmed out eventually to a systems program office as a systems engineer with the Deputy for Training Systems, and then was reassigned down to Eglin as an electronic warfare officer. That was some assignment. And then I left the Air Force as a regular commissioned officer to go into inactive status, thinking maybe the economy's good, I can try my hand after 10 years in the civilian sector. It was bad again. I never had any bites. I waited 2 years. And then, voila, fortunately, I was activated and I was back on duty. And the rest of the story I will leave out because I see the red. But I will say this. I worked with a lot of great people. I was in a great environment. There were motivated people, people committed to getting a job done and who had moral values, attention to detail. It was a good environment. And that's why I say to you in closing, I would always recommend a military career to anyone. It would help tremendously. And as I look back on my time, 28 years in the service, I will never regret, but always be grateful. Mr. Toastmaster.
Now we have